Okay, hi. This is going to be in English, this webcast, because the material is a little bit technical. All right, so I'm going to try to be brief, brisk, and give you a jump on how to complete this the exercise that you see in front of you. This is basically a practice sheet. It's all or nothing, pass, fail. So if you complete it in good faith, you get 100%. Okay, we'll practice this more in the coming days. Accents are the nemesis of a lot of students of Spanish. There's no reason for it to be that difficult, really, and I hope to show you that with this and then in class. All right. So in order to successfully go through the steps that that this sheet up here, for example, describes as how to basically do accenting, I'm going to take you first back to the screenshot which you saw me create during our last Zoom class. And there are three pieces to it. The vowels here, including the diphthongs, the syllables and division of syllables, and then also down here, regla uno y dos. Okay? In the little box here, that's kind of a conclusion of all of this. When you put an accent on a word, a written accent on a word, it's because the word is an oddball word. It's an exception to the patterns, sort of phonetic stress patterns in Spanish, which are fairly predictable. Okay, so to go through this very briefly again, las vocales, you've got five, and unlike English, which really has 15 vowels represented by 5 letters, the 5 letters in Spanish really represent the 5 vowel sounds in Spanish. So it's very simple, a, e, I, o, u. However, there are a lot of diphthongs, 14 of them, which are combinations of the so-called strong vowels and with the weak vowels, or the weak and the weak, down here, the IU and UI. Okay? So when this is a natural tendency in Spanish to form diphthongs very easily, each diphthong has to have, with the exception of these last two, right? They have to have a strong vowel with a weak vowel, and the sort of the sonic character of the resulting diphthong is basically that of the strong vowel that composes it, with a little bit of the sound of the weak, either before or after it. So here you have IA, it's ya, and it sounds mostly like an ah with a little bit of a e in the front of it. Here this is a, sounds mostly like the letter A, the sound A with a little bit of an E following it, and so forth. Okay, so diphthongs again should be thought of as single vowels. Right. Next, syllables. How do you divide syllables in a word? And your basic rule is that for every vowel, for every syllable, you've got a vowel. So if you have a vowel sound, whether it's a diphthong or a monophthong, regular vowel, you've got a syllable. Dividing. Typically, you'll divide a consonant, like the word amante. The N and the T form a barrier. There's a amante. You divide between that pair, NT, like the word consonante also, NT, NS, okay? The L and the R, when they're present, they tend to, the L or the R following a vowel, following another consonant, like hablar en grados, right? Pedro, right? They stick together. It's the same idea with two vowel sounds together. These are two consonant sounds together. They're still independent consonants, but they don't get divided, right, into different syllables. Okay, si es posible, empezamos una sílaba con una consonante. Okay, so yeah, so here we have u, na, empezamos, right? Posible. Okay, those are typical divisions. Regla uno y dos, no? I'm not going to read these now. We did that in class, and this is a fairly straightforward explanation, I think. But just remember the following. These rules are the rules that define the normal situation for words in Spanish. And the words that do follow these rules, that complete these rules, correspond to the rules, they do not get an accent. Okay? So if the word ends with a vowel N or S, the normal emphasis, the natural emphasis, you'll find on the next to last syllable, as in casa. That needs an underline there. Casas, vienen. Okay? So these words do not take an accent mark because they happen to fit Rule 1. all right? If a word ends in a vowel N or S, as these two exceptions do, right, end in a vowel, but their emphasis, the emphasized syllable is not that next to last. Instead, in this case, it's in both cases the last syllable. That's an exception to the rule. And when you write that word, then you have to indicate to the reader, hey, emphasize a different syllable, right? And that's what the accent does. Okay, it's just a flag to the reader. Okay, and then regla dos, it's the same idea. Okay, normally if it ends in a consonant, not N or S, you will have emphasized the last syllable here, right? Lapis is an exception. That's why it carries an accent on the A, the first syllable. Okay, so finally that little box indicates really the use of the syllable, only to indicate an exception to these two rules, right? Which characterizes a whole sort of stress patterns in Spanish, right? All right, let's go to now that document again. So make it over there. There we go. All right. So this first one has been done. Lápices. Okay. This word has an accent here because its stress does not fit Rule 1. Okay. I'm going to do a few of these right now and then leave you to do the rest for homework. All right. The first one I'm going to take up is nombrar. So your instructions tell you to first divide the word into syllables. Okay. So in this case, you have consonant, consonant, consonant. We remember that the R gets glued, as it were, to the prior consonant, the R and the L. And so in this case, we put a dash here, right? And then we have nombrar. Okay. Next, which rule is applied? This ends in an R, so it's rule number 2. All right. And then listen to the pronunciation of the word, because that's essential. Okay, you can't just know a word without having heard it. So we pronounce this nombrar, right? So you can hear that second syllable, that last syllable, being emphasized, right, being stressed, and so we underline that. Then finally, what we do is decide if that fits the norm for a Rule 2 word, right? If it ends in a consonant, it should have the emphasis on the last syllable, as Rule 2 says. And in fact, this one does, right? So we do nothing to it, no accent. All right? Let's take another one. Let's take up chaos, okay? Some chaos. So we have here divided into syllables. Now, you ask yourself, since you know that diphthongs can occur, the A and the O, those are two strong vowels. The A, the E, and the O are the strong ones, those three. So they never join together as a single vowel sound. So you can confidently divide the word here. All right, chaos. Okay. Now, an aside here. A lot of times, the rules of accenting and syllable division are sort of very neatly packaged and systematic, which is a boon for us, right? Learning them, believe it or not. The reality is sometimes you're not going to hear these divisions, right? You might hear chaos. It might sound like the A and the O come together as a single sound because it's pronounced so fast. You have to just live with those certain irregularities, right? You may not hear words the way the system says you hear them, right? Learn the system that we're learning right now, and I promise you, little things like that will not be troubling you. All right. We're accenting, we're dividing here, and then we listen to the which rule is it going to be? It's going to be the S, so that's number 2. All right. I'm sorry. Number 1, vowel N or S, and then we decide to hear the word chaos, right? We hear that this is the syllable being emphasized, so we underline that, and then we decide if that falls into the pattern, the stress pattern indicated by Rule 1. It does, right? The next to last syllable should be emphasized, and so that works too without any accent. No need to call it an exception. All right, let's take the one above it, japonés, okay? We do the same thing, right? We divide it into syllables, japonés, very straightforward. That should be S, it ends in S, so that's going to be rule 1. Rule 1 says that we should hear the emphasis here on po, right? So we should hear Japones, right? I'm exaggerating a little bit. We don't. We know that the word is pronounced Japones. We're underlining here the last syllable. So in fact, this is an exception. This is an exception to the rule, and we have to indicate it by putting an accent there on that last vowel, right? The last syllable is stressed, okay? I think that I'm going to do just one more. I'm going to do one more with you. Let's see. Maybe I should do two. No, I'll explain this without doing it. Especial, okay? Especial. And just to indicate that the I and the A here form a diphthong. Okay, that's an example of a diphthong. Here, the one above it, the I and the O, escritorio, okay? That counts as one vowel also, okay? And what I'd like to do here, there's a sort of a tricky one. Ataúd is a little bit tricky. See what you do with that. Vio and rio are different. They look the same, but they're different. See if you can make the distinctions there. Okay, so I'll conclude by doing this last word here with you because it's different, right? There's something else going on here. Essentially, we've got había is the word as it's pronounced, había, right? So we can hear that these last two letters, these vowel letters, do not form a diphthong. You hear two distinct vowels, e, a, right? So we're going to I'm going to tell you the punchline, as it were, right now, or the key here, and that is that an accent can be used to break a diphthong, right? Many of you will remember this anyway. Okay, so that's what happens here. We're going to end up accenting the I, and that indicates to the reader to not pronounce this as a diphthong. All right, so we will divide this instead of abia, which is not the way to pronounce the word, right? The word is había. Right? It's regla uno, right? But we're using specifically an accent here over that I to cause the reader to say había, right? Había, right? And we're going to underline that as well because that shows the stressed syllable in the middle there. Okay, so that's it. Take on the others, do what you can, and we'll review this in class.